Oh boy. Let's talk about gamers' favorite thing. Stop killing games. That's a new initiative that is being made like in the past months. Maybe it's gonna be past years when I post this because I tend to record these things quite some time before I actually post it. But anyway, stop killing games. That's an initiative that is trying to make games better. I'm not gonna do a deep dive into it because I'm also not really the best person to explain it. But if I understood correctly, it always started because of a game called The Crew, or actually The Crew was the last straw that broke the camel's back. So it is a racing game and it has licensed vehicles in there. So companies, real world companies that make cars, paid the developers, or actually the developers paid the car makers to have the cars in the game. And then they would use that as one of the main selling points of the game. The issue is that the developers and the car makers had a deal, and then this deal expired. And to not have to remake the deal, to not have to pay yet another fee for the car manufacturers, the developers just decided to completely shut off the game, and you cannot play it. You cannot play any of the game modes. The game is just a brick now. You can't do anything with that. Of course, if you have a physical copy, you can still play it, but online copies, they got bricked. There is no better word. You cannot even launch the game, if I understood correctly. So then, that was, as I said, the last straw. And then this initiative was born to try to prevent that from happening. And they are fighting for ways of making games live forever. Kind of. Either by the company supporting the game until the end of times, or more realistically, by the company giving players the means to support the game until the end of times. Like maybe allowing players to have private servers for a game that is a multiplayer game. An example of that would be Battlefield games, like Battlefield 3. You can still play the single-player offline mode of Battlefield 3, but you cannot legally play against other people. But there are private servers for that game. You can download Venice Unleashed, which is the name of the project, and then they have their own private servers that you can access and play against other people. That's one way of making games live forever. That's what Stopping Killing Games is trying to achieve, but for more games. And for Venice Unleashed, Electronic Arts just don't do anything about it. They don't pursue the people in charge of that project because, well, first, to play on Venice Unleashed, people still need to buy Battlefield 3. So Electronic Arts is still making money out of that game. And they just don't have to pay for servers. They let the players handle that. Same thing kind of happens with Battlefield 2 Bad Company 2. I think that's the correct name of the game. It's either that or Battlefield Bad Company 2. And it's similar because for Bad Company 2, you cannot legally acquire the game. So you will need to use a pirated copy to access the private servers. But again, Electronic Arts does not do anything about it because, well, you still need to get a copy. And the guys behind this private server, they do not provide the game. They just provide the server. So there ain't really much Electronic Arts can do. So they just leave them be. And so, as I say, that's what Stop Killing Games is trying to achieve. Which is interesting, I like the idea, but, and that's the part where I'll be crucified, I don't think the way they are trying to achieve that is the smartest way. It's not, I don't think it's the best way to do so. And I think it's actually unnecessary for this project to exist. And that's where I'll explain next. And hopefully I'll make my point clear enough for people to not grab the pitchforks. So first of all, let's go to the subjective part of it. I am a liberal. For the Americans, that's a classical liberal, or maybe even a libertarian. I don't trust the government. I don't like the government. I think we would be better with a government that does not reach as far as what we have now. So me being a liberal, I'm all in to freedoms, to individual freedoms. You have the freedom to buy guns, you have the freedom to use drugs, you have the freedom to marry whoever you want to marry. But that also means that you have the freedom to pile up all your money and set fire to it. I am not gonna prevent you from doing so if you think that's the best thing for you. I still think it's a dumb idea, but if you want to, you are free to do so. And that's how I see a lot of games. I don't think it's wise for people to buy the new Battlefield games because there hasn't been any real development since Battlefield 3. It's the same game over and over, maybe with slightly better graphics. But either way, I don't really care about graphics, so it's the same for me. We peaked at Metal Gear Solid 5. That's like, I don't see the reason for a game to have better graphics than that. As long as, of course, there are mechanics to it, but this deserves a completely different video. Same thing goes for Nintendo games. Pokemon is exactly the same game since Pokemon Red and Blue. Red and Blue? Well, Red, Blue and Green. There hasn't been any meaningful change to the game except graphics. And of course some minor stuff. Like after some point, I think it's Pokemon Emerald, you can now refight Pokemon trainers that you already defeated. So there is some minor stuff like that, but meaningful changes, no. It's exactly the same. So I don't think it's wise for you to buy the new Pokemon games. Am I gonna prevent you from doing so? No, I'm not. You are free to do that. As I said, you are free to waste your money on the new Pokemon games. So I don't like the government intervene on this type of stuff. I don't like the government intervene on people's freedom. And I see that, I see Stop Killing Games, the way they are acting, as they crying to the government to prevent people from buying the games they want to buy. Because, well, if companies keep doing half-assed games, it's because people still buy. People still buy those games, and they are happy with buying those games, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be buying. So there is kinda of a contract in there between the consumers and the company. Both are okay with what's going on. If you go cry to the government, then you are now intervening. You are forcing the government to intervene on the relation between the company and whoever is buying. They have as games. And as I said, and like I'm calling these games half-assed because I don't like them, but some people still do because they still buy those games. The companies still exist and the companies are not changing. So I don't like those games, and I would prefer if people didn't buy them. But I'm not gonna force the government to do something about it. I'm not gonna try to force the government to intervene on it. I feel like everyone is free to like waste their money the way they want to waste it. And video games is entertainment. It's not like healthcare. It's not like the justice system. It's not like police force, which are stuff that are required for someone to live. You can still live without video games. It's gonna be probably a worse life, but you can do so. It's not like healthcare. If you don't go to the hospital right now, you will fucking die. And I feel like, yeah, that is something the government should intervene. How much they should intervene, that's a talk for another video, because you ask 1,000 liberals how much the government should intervene on stuff, and you get 1,001 different answers. So that deserves a completely different video. But anyway, I don't like it. I don't like the idea of going after the government to fix this. Because it's not something that you actually need. It's not like healthcare, as I said. You can live without games, and you can just choose not to buy them. And if enough people agree with you, if enough people agree that these games are half-assed, they will also not buy it, and then you will force the companies to change the way they make games, without the need of the government to put their nasty little fingers on it. So there is that. That's the more subjective part of it. That's like my personal beliefs. And that's gonna change between like from person to person. Now we'll get to the more objective stuff. You may not like liberals, right? Again, you are free to think whatever you want to think about liberals. But I will recommend a series that you can find on YouTube from a channel called Reason TV. It's called Great Moments in Unintended Consequences. It's a series of videos where they will talk about mostly the government trying to do something and then completely messing up and making life worse. And you will have to agree that in most, if not all, of the situations, we would be better if the government just had done nothing. Like one of the episodes that I can think of is about a law on the US, not a law, a initiative on the US to retrieve firearms. So a local government decided that they are not a big fan of firearms, so they are gonna try to retrieve as many as they can, and they will give a financial compensation for the person that are returning their firearms. Like if you have a gun on your house, you can just take it to this place, where you take your gun, and then we're gonna pay you a certain amount of money, and then we're gonna dispose of this gun. And there is also a bonus for unregistered firearms or unregistered parts of firearms. There is like an extra money you get if you get us an unregistered firearm. And that's an interesting thing because let's say someone in your family found a piece of a firearm, and they just decided to keep for whatever reason, and then now it's yours again for whatever reason, and you have no idea what to do with that. So now there is this initiative, there are retrieving firearms, and you have this piece of a gun that is not registered, so you can return it. It's not like you have no use for that, and maybe this piece of gun, this piece of the firearm was used to commit a homicide. So now you are returning this, you're getting compensated by it, and maybe that can help the police to figure out a homicide. It's a great idea. With the best of intentions, what could possibly go wrong? Well, it turns out 3D printing exists nowadays. So a bunch of people decided to 3D print firearm parts, and since they were homemade, they were not registered parts, and so they just sold them to this initiative, and they made a lot of money with that. Enough money that would compensate people traveling between states just to get their compensation. And that's one of the situations where the government tried to do something good and then it completely backfired. And then, of course, we would be way better if they didn't do this initiative, because they wasted a lot of money on the 3D printed parts before they decided to give up on the idea. There is another example on Japan. They decide Japan. How do I even say that country's name on English? Okay, I'm gonna go with Japan. On Japan, they decided to test. They decided to change traffic lights because they used an old system, and they decided to change it to LED lights so they would waste less energy on the traffic lights. But the thing is, they didn't properly test the system, so they implemented it on a certain area, but it started to snow, and since LED does not produce as much heat as the previous light source, the snow just started to pile up on the traffic lights, and then people just wasn't able to properly see the traffic lights, which of course led to an increase of traffic accidents. And now the government had to redo the change. So they wasted money passing a law to change the light sources. They wasted money changing the light sources. They wasted money on the healthcare system because of traffic accidents. And then they wasted money reverting back to the previous light source that produced enough heat to melt the snow. Again, the government trying to be something nice and then it completely backfiring. And I can see that happening with Stop Killing Games. I'm gonna say this just one time, and if you misunderstand what I'm saying, I'm just gonna call you a dumbass in the comment section. I'm not saying that Stop Killing Games wants to make things worse. I'm not saying Stop Killing Games want to kill independent game developers. I'm not saying that Stop Killing Games want I don't know. I guess that's all. I'm not saying they want to completely end small gaming development studios, but they have the potential to do so. It's the same. If we go back to the traffic lights, I'm not saying that the government should waste more money on traffic lights than they do now. But by changing the light sources of the traffic lights, there is a chance that they will end up wasting even more money, which is what happened, because they had to do the change and then revert back. So it's the same thing with Stop Killing Games. Maybe it's not their goal to make things worse, but by going after the government, they have the potential to do so. As I said, I don't trust the government. Most of them are really old people that have no idea on how technology works. They have no idea how game development works. And we are letting them make laws that will dictate how game development should be done. And that has a lot of potential to backfire. That has a lot of potential to make life worse. Maybe it will kill small studios, depending on how the law is written. Like, let's go with ID verification laws. The main argument is to protect the children, right? We all heard this. We need to verify IDs so we can protect the children from predators. I am pretty sure everyone will agree that's a good thing to do to protect children. But the way they are doing now, the way they started doing on like this past months, is very dumb, because it can kill small websites. Like maybe a law is passed saying that every single website needs to have ID verification. So if you have a small website, you will have to figure out a way to implement that, and implement that in a way that is safe for the users to give you their ID. And maybe that's not gonna be financially possible for you to do, because like maybe your website is like a small stuff that maybe just you and your friends access it. But the law says that every single website, no matter the size of it, needs to have an ID verification process. So that can kill small websites. And I can see the same thing happening with Stop Killing Games. Depending, of course, on how the law is written. For that specific problem, I can see an argument being made of, okay, but then we'll have to wait. Because I'm talking about how the law will be written, and we don't know that yet. At least at the time that I'm recording this, we don't know how the law will be written. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't like that either. It's like me saying to you, okay, we should amputate your arm. We should get rid of your left arm, because maybe that will make your life better. Like, maybe you are a fan of Venom Snake, maybe you are a fan of Finn from Adventure Time, maybe you are a big fan of, how's it called? Link from the new game, Tears of the Kingdom. All of those three characters don't have an arm. So you'll not have an arm will make you closer to those characters that you love so much. So maybe I'm right, maybe amputating your left arm will make your life better. But that's not what the history says. The history says that people that lost an arm had a very negative impact in their lives until they were able to afford one of those super cool bionic arms, right? That's what the history says, and that's like what I see with the government. Again, we can go back to Reason TV's series, great moments in unintended consequences, and I feel like there is way more examples of the government trying to do something nice and then it completely backfiring. Then we have of examples of the government trying to do something positive and actually managing to do that. But anyway, that's why I don't want to wait and see. And also, if you wait to see, it's gonna be harder than to just completely prevent the thing from happening. Like, let's say there is a guy that says it's very vocal about killing all the gays. He really hates gay people and he wants to kill every single one of them. You think it's easier to stop this guy at the beginning when he's just a random guy, or you think it's easier to stop this guy when he becomes a president, after he becomes a president? And it's kind of the same thing. It's way easier to prevent something from happening. It's way easier to prevent a law to be passed than to roll back a certain law. So if we wait to see, and it turns out to actually make things worse, then we're gonna have to waste double the amount of resources trying to roll back that law. So there is also that. Third, and I feel like it's the best argument against stop killing games, is that we don't need the government to do that. I already gave an example that, well, if enough people don't buy the games, they will force the companies to change how they develop games. But there is yet another example that I like, which is that we already have private companies. So I'm not sure if it kept it, but either way, sorry if the microphone kept it. The noises over here. Anyway, we already have private companies fixing this issue. One of the examples is GOG. I made a video some time ago. It just got posted. I think it got posted 2 days ago. So through this info, you can figure out when I'm recording this one. But either way, I made a video about GOG or GOG.com. They are a store just like Steam and Epic Games, but their main selling point is that every game on their platform does not have DRM, does not require internet connection to be played, and you can simply have the offline installers with you. You can download the offline installers, you can put it on a hard drive, and it's gonna be yours forever. No one can take that away from you. Those are their main selling points, which I would say that align pretty well with the ideas of stop killing games. It aligns pretty well with the idea of making games live forever. Because if you download the offline installer and you put it on somewhere safe, that's yours forever, and no one can take it away from you, unless of course someone raids your house and takes your hard drives, which GOG is not gonna do. They don't have enough power to do that. They don't have enough power to send people to raid people's house and grab their games. Steam, on the other hand, they can lock you out of your games. At the moment they want to do that. They can completely ban your account, and then there goes all the games you have in there, because you cannot download your games to be played offline if you buy them on Steam. But even like that, Steam also has a great solution to this problem, which is the one that I think it's the best possible outcome, which is not to force companies to change how they develop games, because, well, if you want games to live forever, you're gonna have to change how development is done. Because then, well, the company will have to like figure out a way to either make their game live forever, or to like open source part of their game code, so people can do private servers. So instead of doing that, what is happening on Steam right now is that they are putting labels on games. So customers are more aware of what they are buying. So all of this is on the terms of use, but no one's gonna read that. It is, the terms of use are purposely made way bigger to discourage people from reading that. But what's going on Steam is that they are taking the most important pieces of the terms of use and putting it on evidence on the store page. So there is a thing that most people that play games agree that is a bad thing, which is the novel DRM. DRM is a system to check ownership of a product. And one of the ways to do that, to check ownership, is through de novo, which is a type of DRM. And the problem with de novo is that it can negatively impact the game's performance. So you need to have a way better PC to be able to handle a game with de novo. And there is a lot of examples of games that developers removed de novo after some time, and then the game just run better. Or examples of games with de novo compared with games compared with pirated games that does not have de novo, and then the pirated version runs way better than the official version. So basically you are paying for a product and getting a worse product than what you would get if you pirated the game. So most people will agree that de novo is a bad thing. And so on Steam, for games that have de novo, there is a warning on the store page. Before you buy the game, on the main page of the game, it says, hey, this game has de novo. If you buy it, you're now making a conscious decision. You have been informed that this game has de novo, so don't come cry to us after you buy the game. And the same thing will happen with a bunch of other stuff like Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3, for you to play, it requires you to have a Electronic Arts account. Electronic Arts being the developers of the game. So even if you buy through Steam, you still need to have Origin installed on your PC. Origin being the launcher of Electronic Arts. You need that installed because that's how they will check ownership of the game. and that is also displayed on the store page. So now, if you buy the game, you make a conscious decision about it. You have been informed of it. GOG also has the same, but it's more rare for you to see that, because the whole selling point is that you can just buy your games without having to worry about any of that, without having to worry about DRM, without having to worry about ownership checks, without having to worry about internet connection. But sometimes you will see specific warnings like Gwent. Gwent is a multiplayer game. You cannot play that solo, so you need to have Galaxy installed. Galaxy being the launcher, GOG's launcher, just like Steam has a launcher. Just like Origin is the launcher of Electronic Arts. So if you want to play Gwent, you need to have Galaxy installed. But that's not the rule for GOG, that's the exception. So there will be a warning on the page of Gwent before you buy this game or before you add to your library, because the game is free to play. There is like the warning. So if you decide to play that, you have been informed of this issue. The same thing happened with Doom for a brief period of time. There was a new Doom game that just got released, and there was an issue with one of the DLCs. There was an issue with one of the extra contents that you could buy to the game, which was, I think it was just cosmetics, but there was an issue on how that DLC was programmed, and so if you buy it, you would have to have Galaxy installed to be able to access that content. So again, there was a warning on the store page. Hey, you can buy and play this entire game offline, just like the vast majority of games on GOG store. There is no DRM to it, there is no ownership check, there is no internet connection requirement. But for this very specific DLC, we have this issue due to how it was programmed, and so we need you to have Galaxy installed if you want to access this piece of content. So there was this warning. After some time, they fixed that issue, and now the warning is gone. Now you can access that DLC even if you are offline. You don't need Galaxy anymore. So those are examples of the private sector already doing the work that Stop Killing Games want the government to do. And I feel like that's a way better way of doing so. Because now you're not impacting the lives of people that are just fine if they have asked games. And you don't have the risk of completely messing up the gaming industry and completely messing up independent game developments, game developers, and even like big industries. Because there is another issue that I was almost forgetting to mention. Stop Killing Games is targeting the European Union. The idea is that the European Union is a big enough market, and if they manage to pass a law on the European Union, they will kind of force the game industry to change as a whole. But there is another issue in there. What if the game industry, what if game developers just decided that it's not worth to comply with the new law? Like, let's say they make a completely messed up law, and it requires a lot of financial investment for the game developers to change how they develop games. Now they will have to put on a balance what is worth, what is like best for them. Should we invest in this amount of money to comply with this European law, or should we just like completely ignore the European market, continue doing games the way we do, and like not have to invest that much money in changing the way we do stuff? So they will put that on a balance and see what's better for them, if it is to comply with the law or if it is to completely ignore the European market. And there is a chance they will ignore the European market. Of course, this will depend on the company. If a company already don't sell well on European countries, they can just completely ignore the law and focus on other markets, because there is a lot of other countries in the world. So there is also a chance of not killing game development, but killing games on the European market. And we see that with some Linux distributions, because now there is some countries started to pass ID verification laws, and then some Linux distributions are just say like, okay, it's not worth for us to comply with these ID verification laws, so we're just not gonna sell our products in these specific countries. It is something that is happening with Linux, and it's something that can happen with video games, depending, of course, on how the law is written. We'll go back to that argument that then we'll have to wait and see, but again, I can just say that I feel like it's gonna be better for you if we ripped off your left arm. Maybe it's gonna be better for you to not have a left arm. Maybe it's not. We'll have to wait and see. But the history says that it's not the best. But anyway, that's like what's on my mind about stop killing games. I know this is not the most popular that's not the most popular opinion. I see a lot of people that consume video games overly glazing the Stop Killing Games initiative as like, oh my god, this is gonna solve every gaming issue, this is gonna like make life perfect, this is like the absolute solution for all of our problems. But I feel like it's not really that. I feel like it can bring a lot more problems than what they are trying to solve. And I feel like there is a lot more better solutions to this problem than going to cry for the government to try to do something about it. Because then we risk having an episode of great moments in unintended consequences dedicated to stop killing games. I can kind of already see that coming. The issue being gaming companies killing games, completely breaking games that you paid for, which is a problem, and the solution to pass a law to force game developers to not do that and to try to find a way of making games live forever. Which, again, as I said, sounds like a great idea with the best of intentions.